Crockett's relaxing vacation takes a dark turn, and Tubbs finally shaves off the beard on today's Miami Vice. Bad Timing was directed by Virgil W. Vogel and was written by Scott Shepard. It's an unusual episode in that there's no case for Vice to tackle. It's all about Crockett's strange and violent side adventure when he tries to take a little time off. We open with a police hearing in which Crockett's fitness for duty following his murderous exploits as Sonny Burnett is discussed. The hearing is inconclusive, and Crockett is placed on leave until his mental state is evaluated by a psychiatrist. I am thrilled to announce that Tubbs has shaved off his beard and looks fabulous. Meanwhile, at the Florida State Maximum Security Prison, inmates listen to a concert from one-time Culture Club backup singer Jermaine Stewart, who had a big solo hit in 1986 with We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off. The song he's singing this time is titled Don't Talk Dirty to Me, and between Don't Talk Dirty to Me and We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off, I'm detecting a very clear theme to Jermaine's body of work. Jermaine is adorable, but the inmates really hate his concert. Two of the inmates, Cruz, played by Deadwood's Pruitt Taylor Vince, and Wilson, played by Aboriginal Canadian actor Gary Farmer of Smoke Signals and Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, start a riot. In the chaos, they're smuggled out of the prison by Jermaine's roadie inside the road cases. Once they're safely away from the prison, Cruz and Wilson murder the roadie. Crockett visits a psychiatrist, played by Stephanie Roth, and discusses his feelings over the whole Sonny Burnett fiasco. He confesses that the worst part is how Tubbs and the other Vice detectives are a little bit scared of him now. The psychiatrist reassures him that his friends will come around in time, but for right now the best thing for his mental health is to take a vacation. So Crockett gets on a motorcycle and takes off on a road trip into Central Florida. Wilson and Cruz, who were in prison for an armed robbery in which $1 million was stolen and never recovered, visit one of their old cronies, a nebbish dude named Scotty, who is played by William O'Leary, who is Dead Meat from Hot Shots. I like to assume everyone watching this has the exact same pop culture reference points as I do, and thus will immediately go, oh yeah, that guy is Dead Meat from Hot Shots. Scotty is living with his wife Miriam, who is played by Laurie Crive, who swills martinis while gardening in a pretty flowered dress, and is way too good for Scotty, who is a ratty, mean little louse. Wilson and Cruz want to take Scotty with them to look for the fourth member of their little band, a man named Doc Jerry, who is in charge of hiding the stolen million. Miriam objects, and they leave her bound and gagged with a pair of speakers blasting music strapped to her ears. Just to be clear, Miriam gets brutalized by a pair of dangerous felons, with the explicit approval of her husband, but it's funny. Miami Vice, what the hell? Wilson, Cruz, and Scotty speed out on the open road while Scotty blasts Iggy Pop's Power and Freedom from his boombox. They stop at a gas station and try to hold up the attendant. She refuses to hand over her money because her booth is made of bulletproof glass, so they douse her booth in gasoline and threaten to set her on fire. Terrified, she hands over all her money in her register and her purse, and they set her on fire anyway. We see her heading for the back door of her booth, and maybe she makes it out before it explodes into a blazing fireball, but we don't actually see her get to safety. Wilson, Cruz, and Scotty go to Doc Jerry's last known address, which is now up for sale. A realtor who's showing the place to prospective buyers refuses to let them in, so they pull guns on her and threaten to kill her unless she gives them Doc Jerry's forwarding address. They leave her bound and gagged in the back of a van, then steal her Mercedes and head into the woods to find Doc Jerry's cabin. Crockett's road trip leads him to a dive bar where he blasts Hank Williams' I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry on the jukebox and chats up the pretty waitress, Kathleen, who is played by Melissa Leo, who would go on to win an Academy Award for The Fighter. They hit it off and they end up chatting all night until her shift ends. While Kathleen pops into the store to pick up breakfast supplies, Crockett's distracted by a pair of police officers who are questioning Scotty, who was left alone in the car blasting Iggy Pop's Cold Metal while Wilson and Cruz knock over the store. Wilson and Cruz exit the store in a blaze of gunfire, and they're holding Kathleen hostage. Wilson, Cruz, and Scotty take off with Kathleen, and Crockett carjacks some poor dude and takes off in pursuit. Cruz shoots out Crockett's tire, and he crashes dramatically. He carjacks another poor dude and continues the chase. When Scotty wonders why they're taking Kathleen along, Cruz announces his intention to rape her. When they reach Doc Jerry's secluded cabin, Doc Jerry is nowhere in sight, so Cruz sets about assaulting Kathleen. Crockett has trailed them to the cabin, though, and is lurking outside. Just as he's about to burst in and save Kathleen, he's caught by Doc Jerry, played by Mark Mulcahy, who played a KGB agent in Season 2's Bushido. Doc Jerry holds Crockett at gunpoint, and then Wilson pops up and holds them both at gunpoint. So Cruz takes a breather from trying to rape Kathleen to beat up Crockett for a while. Leaving Scotty to guard Crockett, Wilson and Cruz take Kathleen and Doc Jerry into the woods to find the million, which Doc Jerry claims he's buried nearby. Meanwhile, Tubbs, Castillo, Trudy, and Switek are aware of Crockett's latest bout of trouble and are hot on his trail. Crockett manages to talk Scotty into setting him free, and then he punches out Scotty and heads into the woods. Doc Jerry pulls out a gun he'd buried under some rocks and tells Cruz and Wilson that the million is gone. He'd invested it, and then the stock market crashed. He pulls the trigger, but the gun is no good, having been left outside in the woods for several years, and Cruz kills him. With no fortune to dig up, Cruz goes straight to his plan B, trying to rape Kathleen. Crockett sneaks up behind Wilson and dukes it out with him in a very dramatic fight that involves them rolling around together in the water, and then Crockett hits Wilson with a board several times and tries to drown him. He then heads after Cruz and stops him from raping Kathleen, then beats him unconscious. Wilson, who didn't really drown, holds Crockett and Kathleen at gunpoint, and then Tubbs pops up from behind a tree and shoots him. Back at Kathleen's bar, she and Crockett engage in some sweet talk while dancing to Hank Williams, and Crockett announces his intention to stick around for a few days. Kind of a mixed bag. Overall, I like this episode. I think it lays some important groundwork for Crockett's eventual return to Vice, and the story, with Crockett's vacation interrupted by his pursuit of some dangerous felons, is pretty good. It does demonstrate some bad judgment with tone. If you've got a dark and serious story featuring a couple of dangerous and violent characters on a murderous rampage, you can't really show them mistreating buffoonish supporting characters for laughs. Because Wilson, Cruz, and Scotty are so unlikable and so unpleasant, and because we see them do some pretty terrible things in this episode, I assume character beats like Miriam's ditzy behavior and the pomposity of the realtor and the smugness of the gas station attendant were meant to lighten the mood. But man, it really seems like we're supposed to laugh at these silly women getting attacked, and in the case of the gas station attendant, quite likely murdered by violent felons, which does not work at all for the tone of this episode. On the plus side, Melissa Leo is utterly charming as Kathleen, and it's nice to see this uncomplicated romance blossoming between her and Crockett, even if it does get interrupted by, the violent dudes who keep trying to rape her. And I appreciate that the show is taking some time to deal with the fallout of Crockett's exploits as Burnett, and I think that part of the episode is handled really well. So overall, I think I'm going to go with 3 flamingos. Next time, Castillo gets angry over the murder of a friend, and Tubbs can't decide whether or not he has a beard. That's next time, so in the meantime, please hit subscribe or chat with me on Twitter about Miami Vice, and I will see you then.